It's the Deadline Junkies Screenwriting Podcast with your hosts, Jordan Imiola, Kirsten Porter, and Rand Shami.
All right, our guest today is Ashley Soto Paniagua, screenwriter for the animated series Fast and the Furious, Spy Racers, and The Proud Family. Also, Rand's favorite, the live action series Vida. Welcome, Ashley.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. We're very excited to talk with you. We also, I stalked you a little bit and I found out that you are from Texas and you moved to LA.
Yep. Are you a Texan?
No.
I thought we were doing like a I'm from Texas too bit.
I was actually born in Texas, but I didn't grow up there. I left when I was a baby, but we have that.
What part?
Dallas.
Oh, that's a 10-hour drive from where I'm from.
Oh, yikes.
Texas is a big state.
Do you still have family in Texas?
I do, yeah. My parents still live there. So all the girls, so I'm one of 6 kids. All the girls left and the guys stayed. So all my 3 brothers are still in Texas. My parents are still in Texas. And then my mom's from, the border town. So I have a lot of family of Juarez. And then my dad's from Puerto Rico and he was stationed in Fort Bliss, which is in El Paso. And he brought like his immediate family. So my grandma moved from Puerto Rico. My aunt moved from Puerto Rico. She met another army man. She got her little fling on. And then my uncle, who's now passed, but he also moved from Puerto Rico. So all his siblings and his mom moved from Puerto Rico to El Paso, Texas, of all places. But that's where they landed. So yeah, so my immediate family, most of my immediate family is still in Texas and in El Paso specifically.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of what you write is family oriented. Can you talk about what made you want to write and create?
Yeah. So I'm sorry. I'm like, what's my story? I'm, again, from El Paso, and I went to college in Massachusetts. And that for me was like complete, like nobody prepared me for this world. I was like sort of thrown into this world. I'm born and raised in Texas. My dad is, Puerto Ricans are US citizens. So they have a different sort of relationship with the States. I'd consider it a colony, but all that to say is that it's not the typical immigrant experience that you would have, when you think of immigrant experiences. And then my mom, because she was toggling both worlds, like El Paso and Juarez are like a symbiotic relationship. So all that to say is that like that immigrant experience is very distinct. And, so it's not like the narratives that you hear. I consider my college experience my immigrant experience because I was slapped in the face with I didn't understand the language, we were all speaking English. I don't know what the fuck they were talking about. Like nobody prepared me for this. Like I was a fish out of water completely. And I remember feeling like I don't want anyone to ever feel this way because this sucks. And so I actually became a teacher. So I moved to Mississippi. I have a master's in education from Ole Miss, and I taught high school because I was like, I just had this sort of idealistic notion of like, I'm going to, do it from, the inside. And then what you learn really quickly is that teaching is the most exhausting job in the world. My hat goes off to every teacher. Of all the jobs I've ever done, it's still the most exhausting job, the most challenging job, the most rewarding. Also, the students are amazing. They're worth it, but it's a lot. And so I learned very quickly that I was one teacher serving 300 students. Teaching is hard already. Mississippi is one of the poorest states in the nation. So one of the most underserved, under-resourced school, has some of the most under-resourced schools in the nation. So teaching as a baseline is already hard, but when you add these other layers and factors, it is a lot. And so I was spread really thin, and I started to think about impact and what kind of work can really, offer that. And I was also finishing my master's and sort of thinking of what my next steps were. I knew I wasn't going to lay down long-term roots in Mississippi. And my best friend from college lives in LA, and she's like, come out here and figure it out. I was like, okay. I didn't have a plan or anything. And so I landed in marketing. I was like, oh, this is perfect. Billboard, you can sort of normalize marginalized spaces. This is great. Again, another idealized notion of what it's going to look like. And then in practice, like my job is to like find the audience and push the brand message, like buy Tide, do your laundry. Like, so I like could not control the message. I was like, who's controlling this narrative? Like, who gets to decide what these stories are? And I was like, oh, I'm in LA. I should be a writer. That's what I should do. So I took a writing class. And yeah, and I, knock on wood, I got hired to pretty quickly. I was like, within a year, I was like, I had written that freelance episode for Netflix for that Fast and Furious show, for Fast and Furious Spy Racers. And when we got on Proud, they give you like, presentations or whatever and blase. And they were saying that low income children from Black and brown kids from low income rural areas watch the most TV. So I was like, oh, perfect, because that's who I'm writing to. That's who I'm writing for. And so it was sort of like a cool full circle, very circuitous, like very long full circle. It took a while to get around that to the other end of the circle, but we got there. I was like, great, I'm getting to do the work that I set out to do. It took me some trial and error, but and now it's out there in the world.
That is so awesome. I love that story. Both of my parents were teachers, and so I'm in awe. And I know they were very much about, sharing messages and helping people and sharing a positive message to kids. So I was curious, I know with my own parents, I always am like, how did I become a writer? Because my parents were teachers, but to me, I'm like, oh, because they were storytellers. Do you feel like there was anything you took from teaching that really helped?
1,000,000%. Teaching has prepared me for life. Like it was completely foundational for like my adult life. I was 21 when I started teaching. So it was quite literally my foundational adult period. Managing people, like people think that like managing kids is different than managing adults. There is no difference. One like there
I can second that.
You just have to set expectations, manage the expectations, set objectives, make them very attainable. Clarity is, everything. The one thing that's different, which sucks, is that now you have HR. Like with kids, like, kids talk back and you get a little bit of rapport, especially high school kids. So you guys can sort of duke it out and talk a little smack with each other. And then at the end of the day, all right, bye, Miss Soto, see you tomorrow. Can't do that at work. Because before you know it, HR is, you got to be with HR and all your bosses and everybody's getting, everything's getting documented, which is like, whatever. And so there are some things that suck about adults more than kids, to be honest. But
I feel like it takes a lot to get to HR in a writer's room, though,
Sure, but just generally, when you're just with, I guess I'm thinking more of just like a 9 to 5, like all those things are still, they still operate the same way.
Totally.
I feel like for kids, it's the parents are HR. For teacher, it's parents that come in and tell you did this wrong and that wrong, and I have the documentation of how you screwed up. Oh my gosh!
So honor students are the worst. I will say that. I won't disparage them further than that, but they're the worst because their parents are the worst. So their parents, their kid can do no wrong. Their kid is their shining star. Their kid has gotten straight A's since kindergarten. Well, honey, this is IB bio. Your kid is it? I don't know what to tell you. Kid, did it level up? And then you got principal meetings. I do not miss that. I mean, no, well, I love the kids. I really do. But like students who weren't my honor students call the parents. I'm so sorry. My kid knows better than that. You will have no problems out of them tomorrow. Like students who, you know, my honor students were the hardest parent wise, but with the parents, when my non-honor students, you know, this like tracking, so I hate tracking. I could call home. They were my buddies. The parents were like they were my team. I was like, bruh, like your kid hasn't done their homework in a week. Like, what's going on? What do you mean? He says he doesn't have homework. Oh, he does. Oh, he's gonna have it all in tomorrow. Like they were on it. Those parents were on it and they were great. They were wonderful. And like, you know, sometimes, you know, and I was young. I was, you know, again, I was 21 when I first started. So, you know, I had a student who was 20. I had students who were close, you know, they were close, very close to my age. So they, you know, they try to get sneaky and stuff. So I call home, hey, it's me again. Oh, don't worry, Miss Soto. We're gonna get that taken care of. Don't you worry about that. Like they were great, but the honors students' parents, when I taught IB bio, oh no. I remember once me and the parent got sent to the principal's office. It wasn't even that she called it. We both got sent. Like, what's going on here? Well, you know, and parent tells their story. I was like, well, you know, she raised her voice, so I decided to match it.
Sounds like we can expect a school show from you at some point in the
You know what, Mac? What's up? She beat me. I see that show. Okay. Abbott Elementary, best show on TV. I've been about that life since before it came out. I've been like, I told my manager, like, I'm perfect for the show. Like, put me on. He's like, you can't break your contract. You're on a show right now. I was like, but I don't think you understand. I'm made for this. Anyway, and the only complaints I have about that show that is just of a small inaccuracy is that bruh from Everybody Hates Chris, what's his name? It's leaving me. Anyway, so the main bruh, he said that he like applied to be a principal, but then he's never been a teacher. He's a sub. Like you have to have at least 3 years experience as a teacher and ideally more in order to even be considered for a principal. So he was never going to get that job, even in an under-resourced school. Like I taught Mississippi, all my principals were, they'd been teachers and knew exactly what it was. That's the one little thing that, you know, they didn't get. But teacher-wise, everything, buying your own rugs, you know, sleuthing for your own rugs or whatever, you know, they were doing, all of that is 100% facts. And then people bullying each other and being real snarky with each other, all of that. It's all true, all of it. Quinta, where you at?
Amazing. Well, I have like 500 Vida questions, so I'm going to pivot into that direction. So first, let's start with, how did you end up on Vida? What was the journey that led you to working on that show?
A recommendation. That's how all this works. Someone powerful called the other powerful person on my behalf, you know, and then I got the meeting. I mean, I wish it was, you know, there's no Indeed.com for these jobs. I wish there was a different way to like paint it, but it wasn't. I was in the right place at the right time. The person was feeling generous and they made a call on my behalf. Thank you, Sierra Onellas. She did that. So yeah. And she and I had done the NHMC TV Writers Program. We're both alumni of that program. And so, you know, I was proactive of, you know, I wanted to get to know her because she came as a speaker and she was really funny. And I was just like really like enamored by her. And then, you know, so we followed each other on Instagram, and then eventually like she met me for coffee, and then, you know, I guess she liked me enough that she stuck her neck out for me and like made a call on my behalf. Yeah, so that's how it all works. That's every job that I've gotten. It's always all been like that. Yeah, so I wish I wish it was like I don't know, different.
No, I mean,
so grateful for it, obviously, but it, you know, that's the reality.
I mean, but in the end, after the interview, you took it
Yeah, I
home,
definitely had to
you
sell
know?
myself. That's for sure. I definitely, I got, a phone call got me the meeting. I had to show up and sell myself for sure. That was totally true. Yeah. So you want to know about that. So this is embarrassing. I think I might tell this story. I don't know. This is like my most embarrassing story, but it was like perfect for the show. So I'm so embarrassed by this story. I can't believe, like, I've already said I'm going to say it, so I have to. So so just to set the scene for you, the interview was outside in a coffee shop, so people could hear our conversation. My most embarrassing story, people could hear that shit happen. Like I was whispering my story because I was like, I could literally like hear the ears hearing me, because at one point some fucking bird flew and interrupted my story, and then we like, oh, bird, and whatever, and then something, and then it flew to the next person's whatever, and we were like, oh, bird, or like, oh, sorry to interrupt. She's like, oh, no worries, I'm listening to what you guys are talking about anyway. I was like, so that I'd like really try to whisper so much to the show where I had to be like, I can barely hear you, and I'm like, I know. Anyway, so long story short, I was hired for a very specific storyline, and she was very clear about that. So I grew up in a very Christian household. Like my mother, she loves Jesus. She prays to Jesus. She thanks Jesus. Jesus is her life, her world. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. I grew up in a predominantly Black church. My dad's Afro Puerto Rican, and so my mom was like really intentional in making sure that I had Black community, and my mom's from Juarez, but she went to high school in Chicago in an all Black girls high school. So she was one of like 5 non-Black people at the school. So that was her first introduction to the United States. It was Black America. So she had this very nuanced understanding of how Black people are treated in America. And then separate from that, the in-group community, because when you're in an all Black high school, there's a very different sort of everyone has the same cultural currency. So all that to say is me avoiding talking about the church thing, which is all right. So I was hired for the church storyline, where they were going to have like a whole thing about, they learned that their dad is a pastor now or whatever. And they needed someone who like had like very tangible, like I got Bible verses for days. I can tell you all about it. I can pull it out everywhere. Anytime I can pull, like they probably thought I was crazy in that room. Actually, no, they definitely thought I was crazy, because I could just like, oh yeah, this Bible verse that like, I was just quoting shit. And then everybody in that room, like, they're witches. So they're like, what the fuck is this bitch doing in this room? So like, anyway, so I'm telling this I'm really avoiding the story. I'm like really like, I'm just giving myself, I'm like building up the courage to tell you the story that I told that got me the job, which was so after, once I went to college, just like, okay, bye Jesus, and college was like the worst place on earth. And my mom was like, see, you shouldn't have said bye to Jesus. And so like, when I went to, Ole Miss, she was like, you should say hi to Jesus again or whatever. So it was just a lot of poking, like, leave me alone. And then there was a lot of like, like, I hope God sends you a wonderful man. You should be open to love and this and that, blase. Then I moved to LA. And I'm like, all right, maybe I should go to church. All right, Jesus, what's up, Jesus? Then I meet this man, and I swear to God, sorry for using his name as May. I swear to God, I looked at that man. I was like, this man is whack. He has some like aluminum pants on. He is so whack. Anyway, again, being not one of few people of color in like mostly white spaces, you typically have like, you sort of gravitate to each other. So naturally we became friends, as I did with every other person of color that I met. But this guy, sorry. So this guy, okay, so I will say that my sorry, I just really gotta like Just tell the story. It's fine. It's probably you're probably gonna be underwhelmed. Just let me just say you're.
Yeah, is this a bit? Do you build up to the story?
No, I promise. I promise. It's just like, don't tell this story. Like, I can't believe I've already committed to telling it. So I will say, as much as I'm like joking about it, I was like an earnest, like, let me give this a shot. Let me like, let me find Jesus again. It was like an earnest, whatever. So I was like being like very like open to whatever was being, whatever they told you to do, I was doing. You told me to read John 4:4, I was reading it. Like I was diligent. And then, so bruh, he was like super religious or whatever, also like really corny, but anyway, sorry, I'll stop disparaging him for the sake of the story. So this guy, super religious, and he claimed that his mom had the gift of prophecy. And at the time I was in, so I was like, okay, great, everybody has like gifts of the spirit and whatever, like, sure, I believe you. She has the gift of prophecy. And he would always talk about like, talk to his mom. He would talk to his mom often. I don't talk to my mom a lot. Every time she talks to me, it's about like, Jesus. So like, I just like avoid her like the plague. Like I really do. I'm sorry, Mom. It's true. Like you probably won't listen to this anyway. So like, it's overwhelming, So, but he like had like a beautiful, in my head, I was just like, wow, you're so close to your mom. That's so beautiful. And you guys like pray together. And that's so like, wow, that's special. Like, like, wow, that's cute. Like, and it was like an earnest, whatever. So he would tell me like, oh yeah, me and my mom, we talked to Jesus today, we prayed and this and that, blase. Me and my mom, this and that, like he was, always telling me about all the things they prayed about and the things that were prophesied or whatever, blah, blah, blah. So we're dating, it's like 4 months in. So like, we're, I'm just like, Jesus. And then, so before we get to the real part is that he so one day he says like, one of the prophecies is that like before I met you, one of our like little prophecies was that I was gonna meet a woman, she was gonna be younger than me, probably not my type, fuck you, asshole, but that's the one that's been sent to be your wife. And in my head, I was like, damn, really, God, this is what you gave me? Fuck. All right. But I got to be, but I was like real earnest. I got to be obedient. I got to listen to God, Jesus. So I was like, okay, I guess this is the man for me. I guess I'm getting married to this motherfucker. But, very earnest, like, okay, yeah, I guess that's what God said. I guess that's what I got to do. And it was like a lot of like, God, please don't make me marry this man. Please, like separately. So then fast forward, again, but then, so I'm like reluctantly, internally, like, I'm not like expressing this to anyone, but like internally, I'm like, please help me, get me out of this. But like, I'm like, but I got it. Like, maybe it's because I haven't been listening to Jesus. That's why. Maybe this is the flesh. This is the flesh telling me not to listen to him. This is the flesh telling me not to succumb to the, whatever the fuck. Fast forward, he's all, again, I've already bought into the fact that he's like really close to his mom and they pray together. And I think that of all the things, all the red flags, I still think that's beautiful. One day, I'm in the same room while they're praying. And Jesus, am I going to become a singer and get a record deal? And his mom's on there like, yes, you are. And Jesus, am I going to, be on the cover of a magazine? Yes, I'm getting yes, you are. So what you telling me is you just on the phone with your mom and you just saying shit that you want and your mom is saying yes, and this is a prophecy this whole fucking time. You've been just talking to your mom on the phone? That's all it was? Like, y'all, there was no real like that, there was none of that shit. I literally was dating you because you said God said we had to. But you know who said it? Your mom told you to, because your mom wants you to settle down because you're 30 fucking years old dating a 23-year-old, bro. That's predatory. The fuck?
I guess this is what...
him for 4 months. My stupid ass believed him. That is not the gift of prophecy.
This is what they call Jesus working in mysterious ways.
Nah, bro, that was not Jesus. That was not Jesus.
That's just a desperate mom.
Yes. Oh my gosh. When I tell you everything added up, like I was like, oh my God. Oh God. Like when we, again, when I tell you I did not like this man, like, church people, they get together, they go do things. So he used to do this, like, if you've ever been downtown, or if you've ever been to Little Tokyo and you went to karaoke and you know the karaoke guy, that was him. I've really narrowed it down for you. So he would do karaoke. So we all of us as a group went out, but I was broke because I had been making $28,000 a year as a teacher. So when I moved to LA, like that money runs out quick. So I didn't have money. So he said he could get us free parking. So I was like, yes, I want that free parking. But I was the only one who took him up on it. So he thought I was really into him. And then his mom was there and she's like, she's really into you. And in my head, I was like, but I'm not. I just want free parking. I don't know, like, what but I learned these stories later about those conversations they had about how she's really like, no, I just went, I was broke and needed free parking. Like, that's how broke I was. I just wanted to park for free. Like,
I do have to say though, Jesus may have been looking out for you because this story did get you a job as a writer.
Nah, bruh. Jesus could look out for me in a different way. Jesus could look out for me in a different way. Like, that bitch, like, I was like trying, at one point, that first year I was like studying for the MCAT, I did not get in, got rejected from everything because that bitch kept calling and saying, Ashley needs to get out of the house. And I would like, be like, I'm in the middle of stuff, like, you know what I mean? But they would fucking ambush me in my apartment and come over and be like, like, I literally, like, I did not get into medical school. Granted, I made my decisions. I own that. I should not become a doctor if I'm making stupid decisions like that. It was a good thing. But all that to say is that, like they were just like in here and like, I didn't see it.
Well, you saw it eventually. At least you found out.
Here's the really important, I already committed to saying it, so I have to finish the story. We would have to pray for forgiveness after,
Oh no.
That shit was weird. That shit was weird. You hear Sierra and Future doing that shit, I feel sorry for her. Or no, not Future, the new guy.
Damn.
I feel bad for her. I've been there. Get out.
Well, speaking about questionable choices and decisions.
Questionable characters.
Yes, both. So in Vida, both Emma and Lynn, but especially Lynn, make a lot of like really questionable choices in the series. And I've always wondered like what kind of attention was given to keeping them quote unquote likable, how were you conscious about buying it back, or were you just like, these are the stories, let's go?
I don't think the word likable was ever ever uttered in the room. We were very focused on the character arc.
Oh yeah.
And story wise, as long as you hit those, there's an element that's very formulaic about it. Mm-hmm. So as long as you earn the moments, the characters more, they may not be likable, but you're going to be rooting for them. Mm-hmm. And I think definitely. Tanya Sriracha is like really great at earning moments, because ultimately, sure, I was in the room, but it's her show, it's her mm-hmm. earning moments. Mm-hmm. I contributed some Bible verses, but Tanya Sriracha is the one who earned those moments, and yeah. So likability wasn't. I don't think we ever talked about that. It was always like what their arc was, and she was really intentional about a moment that she wanted to see and make sure that it was earned.
Totally, and it is one of those moments. Would one of those moments be the twist in the end, the redemption of Vida? Was that always planned, or is that something that came up at some point naturally?
No, it wasn't planned. Yeah, no, it wasn't. There was like multiple decisions. There was like multiple options of how it would end. And as a matter of fact, I think the room had ended because, I wasn't producer level yet. So only the producers get to stay on once you go into production. And I think the room had ended and she was still tinkering with that ending.
Wow, that's quite last minute for such a powerful ending.
Yeah.
And the show is very dramatic. Do you know if it was always intended to be a half-hour format, or if there was ever talk of it being an hour-long show? I mean, they're not.
I don't know. I don't think it was ever an hour. I think most of Tanya's the writer of everything, so she can do anything. But if I remember correctly, she wrote on a lot of half hours. She did write on How to Get Away with Murder, but I think she did write on a lot of half hours. So I think that was her sweet spot TV wise. But she's also all about the drama. So like, it's no surprise if it's a dramedy.
Yeah, totally. And do you feel like the show like successfully helped raise awareness about gentrification in LA specifically? Do you know about any response?
I don't know. I imagine people who watch the show, I'm sure that's a takeaway. Like, it's a huge, set piece of the show. I do know that there's a lot of like negotiating with the people of Boyle Heights that had to happen in order to shoot the show. I wasn't part of those negotiations, so I can't speak to the specifics, but I know that it was ongoing throughout, the duration of the show, because of the nature of it, which is, at the end of the day, the majority of the people who are making the show aren't actually from Boyle Heights, so there's an element of that. Like, so you're telling a story about gentrification, and who are you? Who are you that is into this space? So there was a lot of negotiations, from what I remember, that took place.
Oh, very interesting.
What about for people that aren't in Boyle Heights, but would like to? Do you have any advice for anyone on how to help the cause, gentrification and everything?
I do not make policy, ma'am. This is one of those where, like, I'll absolutely answer the question, but this is when people are like asking, like, Britney Spears, like, what do you think about, no, let me not talk about Britney Spears. That's a very specific, different. I mean, let me choose a different celebrity to use as an example. It's like if somebody's asking, I don't know, Tyler Perry. Well, no, Tyler Perry's so specific.
Beyonce.
Some random famous person. No, Beyonce's different too. Anyway, so what does she know about quitting a job? Anyway, whatever. I do like Don't Break My Soul, but what does she know about that? Anyways, but like, it's like asking Ariana Grande, like, so what do you think about, gentrification? Like, what is Ariana? You know how when Kanye West is like, Lady Gaga is the lead photographer person at it's whatever, like, what does Lady Gaga know about photography? Like, that, this is how I feel being asked this question, but it's not to say that I won't have an opinion, or I just want you to know that it is an opinion. It is not, I have not researched this. I didn't read like a gentrification book before this to prepare for this answer. But I think people are being displaced, right? So I think there has to be real intentionality behind these sort of life decisions, because a lot of these gentrification, like questions of gentrification, are either you're moving there or you're opening a business there. And so what is it that you're doing? I mean, one, question whether you should be making those decisions in that place at all. Like, do you have other options? Can you go elsewhere and be more intentional about supporting, grassroots causes in those areas, but also if you are if that's where you are going, I think there has to be a lot of intentionality behind it, and like especially from a business perspective, like, if you're opening a business there, that like you have to do the work. You have to, there's like an academic term, like participant observation. You have to be that person. You have to be a part of the community before you decide that you want to also occupy the space there more permanently. And that's work, and it's time, and it's effort, and it's necessary. Because I think a lot of times you're going to have, you're going to have the displaced people against the the gentrifiers. But if you go about it in a way that is, where you're actually ingratiating yourself into the community, I think then you're part of the community. I think there's a fine line there. And so, I mean, just don't do it. It's like, it's like asking, how do I gentrify like nicely? Like, you know what I mean? Like, just like, don't. Like, I think, I think of Puerto Rico. I don't know if you know what's going on in Puerto Rico, but there's a tax that's only available to foreigners, and it's not available to Puerto Rican residents, where people can buy land and buy property. And it's a tax for mostly, it's mostly available to wealthy people, because if you're buying property in Puerto Rico, it's probably not your first home. So parts of the rainforest are being sold, and it's a tax. It's a tax write-off. It's a tax incentive. So like the entire island of Puerto Rico, it's getting colonized. I think here, once you go into a sort of country's element, it's colonization. It stops being gentrification. It starts being colonization. But there's a real like mourning, because as an example, there's this family that bought that rainforest, and they're like, oh, we'd have no intention of like doing any, like demolishing the rainforest, like it's just for the tax break or whatever. Okay, but what about your grandkids who don't care? Like, what's gonna happen to our rainforest, the only rainforest? Like, just, I don't know, just don't do it. Like, I don't know what to tell you, just don't.
I think that's good advice.
Don't do it.
Do you have a favorite episode of Vida?
I don't have a favorite episode, but I have a favorite scene. And it's when, what are their names? The younger sister, when she goes partying and has an orgy, and then she takes the bus back, and there's a domestic worker.
Oh.
That has my heart.
That was really good.
Yeah, I always love a good scene that just shows it. It doesn't say anything. You just see it and you get the message.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was done really well.
All right, let's go talk about animation now.
Great.
So you worked for Fast and the Furious, Spy Racers, and the Proud Family. What did you most enjoy about writing for animation?
The people.
The
people are funny.
The people you were working with.
Yeah, I really enjoyed my time on the Proud Family. Sorry, I'm getting emotional because I left the show. And I just, but it was my own decision. It wasn't anything, but I'm just kind of bringing emotions. But it was so beautiful to work on that show. It sucked because it was the pandemic. So we were together in person for like 6 months, and then the pandemic happened. So we were all on Zoom. But the people were just like wonderful, within the writer's room, one of the funniest people I know, Calvin Brown Jr., he's like, it pisses me off how funny he is. Like all the writers would be like just pitching, they're just like pitching jokes. They're like trying to get their jokes on the board. Like we're like all like, thinking, like trying so hard and failing so hard, because that's the nature of pitching. You're going to get rejected. Calvin will leave the room, go have a little field trip with himself, leave for an hour. He's our co-EP, so he can do that. And and then he comes back. By the time he goes from the door to his seat, he tells 6 jokes, all hilarious, all laugh out loud funny, and they all get on the board. And we're just like, bruh, can I just get one? Can I just get one? One, please. And it was just like being around that every single day. It was just like, bro, okay, we get it. You're funny. We get it. But then you're like, oh, right. Like you get paid to do this. So you're like earning your check. I need to earn mine. Yeah. So the people are just really wonderful. And the art, I'm not an artist. I can't that's not something I can do. And I loved when they would like, you know, share updates. We would have like a weekly meeting with the team. That was only there because of the pandemic. And they were like, this would never happen in person. Like if we were in person, we'd be all in our silos. But yeah, so these weekly meetings, like the artists would share, you know, updates, like new character designs or new, you know, location designs or props or whatever. And it was just like, it was one of my favorite things. And I found obviously I have access to all the folders before, but sometimes I would like sneak peek before and I'd be like, ooh, I like this one. I like this one. And if I really hated one, I like knew, and then I would like lobby privately. I like don't have permission to do any of this stuff. Like it was definitely not my job to be like, don't do this, but I would definitely lobby like the artists, be like, can we do this instead? What do you think? And like, you know, they would like pitch it to their bosses and then sometimes get it approved and sometimes not, but it was definitely like outside of the purview of my job. It was not my job. Like I was breaking rules, but it was like my favorite thing to like just see all the art and then lobby for what I wanted secretly. Because once you know the showrunner on the writer side passes it to the art side, then that's its own sort of like, you know, chain of events. So what we, you know, everything that's on the page is always gets, you know, drawn and or whatever. But you know, they have their own little, like they have their own license to do, you know, some detail stuff. And sometimes that detail stuff was like, no, please no. And so I would definitely like lobby privately. I was a schemer. But I think it worked out. That's why Dejanay has natural hair in the college episode, because I lobbied that.
You're a hero.
Thank you. National treasure.
That's awesome. Do you have a favorite script that you hasn't been produced yet? Like you have a passion project?
Yes, I can't tell you what it is and I can't tell you what it's about, but I have a favorite one. I do.
Is it going to get made?
Huh?
Is it going to get made? Oh, it gets an eyebrow raise. Okay.
We'll imagine. We'll insert our own, you know, we'll all each imagine what that script is and just pretend that is your passion project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like,
it's another Dejanay episode. She's my favorite. I'm very protective of her. Yeah. So that's what I'll say. That's all I'll say.
Well, we will keep an eye out for it for sure.
Oh yeah.
So do you have any general advice for up and coming writers, or, you know, we're part of a writers group with many writers, and so they are our main audience and listen to this. So
get a hobby. Get a hobby. No, I swear, like writing right now is your hobby, but get a different one, because when you have your interviews, what's your hobby? I go to church.
Actually, there's this guy I met at church.
Yeah. What's your hobby? You know what I mean? Like, I just spoke to a girl yesterday who also wants to be a writer, this and that. And I told her, I was like, get a hobby. And she was like, oh, well, you know, I do archery. I was like, ma'am, don't leave any meeting without letting you should never leave a meeting without people knowing that you do archery. A Black girl doing archery? Ma'am, everybody needs to know that is your story. Tell that story, bro. Like what, like I should have to pull it out of you. That is your story. So get a hobby. Make sure at every meeting, everybody knows what your hobby is that is not writing and is not industry related. Some random fuck shit like archery, because that shit is going to get you a job one day. Because like, oh shit, like archery, we're writing some, I don't know, when do you do art? Like what time, medieval shit? Like, oh, let's hire that girl that does archery. I don't know. Like that stuff take like, at the end of the day, your samples are going to get you interest as much as, you know, I'd like to say it doesn't. A recommendation is going to get you that interview. And when you get into that interview, you have to sell yourself. And then once you're in the writer's room, it's just you and the other writers who are all funny, who are all you're all good at their jobs. They're all good at story. They're all good at jokes. They're all, you know, good to be, you know, fun people to be around. But only you can tell your archery story. So like, what experience do you bring into the room that nobody else has, that you can pull out at any moment and be like, yeah, so I hit a bullseye or the other day. I don't know what the fuck archery people do. I'm sorry to I don't mean to tarnish the name. But you know what I mean? Like the fuck? Like there's this one dude in our room. He was like like people do like basketball and football in high school. He's like, yeah, I did the slopes. I was a skier. I was the only black skier in my league. And I'm just like, bro, like what? That's so random but cool. Like, why aren't you telling that story? Like, you know what I mean? But like all of that is gonna, most of writing is not writing, it's talking in a room for hours. Like, what makes you interesting? Because if you're telling the same stories everybody else is telling, it gets boring. So like, get a hobby. And if you don't have, like, don't feel bad if you don't have one, go find one, go surfing. I went surfing in Puerto Rico for the first time. Girl, I am a surfer now. I cannot wait to get back on those waves. Like, I get it. I love it. I've only done it 5 times in my life. I bought the 5 package lesson because I love that shit so much. I cannot wait to get back on a wave. And then I went to these beaches in LA. I was like, damn, these beaches are dirty. I got spoiled and I didn't even know it. But now I have like surfing and beach stories. Like, I can tell you that LA beaches are ugly as fuck, but I only know that because I was surfing in Puerto Rican beaches when I went and visited my family like a month ago. And I hadn't done that in 16 years. I hadn't seen them in 16 years. And then it was like a beautiful thing. My dad like came and visited too. He hadn't been in 20, and everybody's like from the neighborhood. Like, my dad's nickname is Unge, because when he was a baby, he would cry, Unge. So that's what he was known as. So nobody knows his name, Luis, but they know Unge. So everybody in the neighborhood is like, Unge's here. So these old ass fuckers, 65 years old, coming out of the woodwork in the neighborhood because Unge's here, because my dad's, in his 60s. So like all these old ass people like coming out like they're children. And I've never seen anything more beautiful, like a more beautiful homecoming, to see these old ass motherfuckers, like old Puerto Rican, like just like Unge's here. And it was just so beautiful. But had I not like decided I was gonna go to Puerto Rico and then go surfing, like, I wouldn't have that story to tell. So like, what hobby do you have that then pulls out all these other stories, because that is what you offer. You're a storyteller. So go live life, go get a hobby so you can tell those stories.
I love that. That's awesome.
Me too.
Yeah. All right. So we have, I think, one last question. What's your favorite TV show now or of all time?
Currently, I love That For You. I don't know if you've seen it. You should. It's like the QVC like parody show. It's so good. It's so good. Like, nobody wants to watch QVC, but I want to watch this version. It is the funniest shit I've ever seen in my life. Okay, separate from that.
Where is that? Like, what channel or what?
I think it's on Showtime. I watch it on,
okay.
Either I'm watching it on Amazon, like I think I get it through Amazon, like through my subscription, but like I think it's a Showtime show.
Mm-hmm.
But all time, anything Michaela Cole. Michaela Cole is a goddess. Everybody like loved her from I Made It Show You, but I've been about her before then when she did Chewing Gum.
Yeah.
Again, that I have like a Jesus like storyline, like upbringing. So like I viscerally identified with Chewing Gum. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not the only one. And it was just so beautiful. I love that show so much. I love I ran into her. Okay, so you want to hear this story real quick? I know we're like out of time, but you want to hear the story? I don't fangirl. Okay, so I am not that person. Like Proud Family, we had everybody on that fucking show, like celebrities on celebrities on celebrities. I don't fangirl. Michaela Cole, I could not help myself. We were in masks, okay? I was in New York. I was going to the Basquiat exhibit in New York this summer. And this is how much of a fan I am of her. We were masked up and I recognized that bitch. I saw her and so we were looking, I was at the museum looking at Basquiat art. Again, he's Afro-Puerto Rican. So I'm just, this is my shit right here. Like, I'm here for Basquiat. And we're looking at some piece of art and I'm like, oh, excuse me. And, she'd say, oh yeah. Or like we're both looking at the same piece of art and we're sort of like shuffling together as people shuffle. And then I'm like, oh, excuse me. And she's like, oh yeah. And then I look up and I'm like, Michaela? I like made eye contact with her, and I like, it was Michaela Cole. I could not help myself. I have never fangirled over someone, and I said the art. Just so you know what I told her, since obviously you have to know. I was like, Michaela, the art that you share with the world is beautiful. Chewing Gum has my heart. It was everything, and I think I probably said other things that I can't remember, And then I stopped myself. I was like, oh my God, this is probably not the experience you wanted to have when you came to this exhibit. I'm sorry. And she was so nice about it. And she's like, oh, are you enjoying this? I was like, yeah, you know, Puerto Rican, this and that, blase, blase. And then I said something about I'm going to Puerto Rico. She said, oh, I love Puerto Rico. And then I forget. And then her friend came. My niece was with me. And my siblings are all much older than me. So my niece is like 25 years old. So she was with me. And she's like, so she came, she didn't witness the bullshit that I just did. And so she came in and she thought it was like a friend that I run into. And she like shook her hand. I was like, this bitch got to shake her hand. The fuck? It's not fair. Anyway, and then my niece's name is Naya. She's like, oh, hi, I'm Nayeli. Nice to meet you. So Michaela knows Nayeli's name and she doesn't know mine. But honestly, it's probably for the best because I was masked up. I was the crazy person who like stopped her. And so she never know what I look like. So I still have the opportunity to work with her one day, as long as she doesn't hear this podcast.
We'll try to keep it out of her way for sure.
But she's a goddess. She is a goddess. That is my answer. She's my favorite. Whatever she does, I'm there.
I love
She's
that.
incredible. And now I feel like I slightly sort of met her second degree. So
she's wonderful. She's also
you made
very
my day.
short.
Well, thank you so much, Ashley, for joining us and sharing all of this, and especially the Michaela Cole story and your Jesus boyfriend story.
Oh my God. I can't believe I told that story. It's just like embarrassing. Like
it's your claim to fame. It's your claim to fame.
It really is. Okay, so make sure you're living life and you have a very embarrassing story that you can hardly tell. And that is how you become a writer.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, she hired me not because the story was amazing, it was because I was vulnerable. Yeah, and that's what they're looking for: vulnerability, the willingness to do it on a regular basis. Yeah, love it. Well, thank you again so much. We really enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you.
Support my crowdfunding campaign.
Yes.
Tell us about it. Go ahead.
Where do we find it? Give us the info.
Yeah, it's on Seed and Spark, CHUCHI and ADALIZ. So this is about the only thing worse than a breakup, a friend breakup. After ADALIZ loses her job for insider trading, she moves in with her childhood bestie, CHUCHI, who teaches her how to be poor. And then it doesn't end well. As a matter of fact, it ends. So it's on Seed and Spark. You can follow us on Instagram, CHUCHI and ADALIZ. I can put that on the chat or whatever.
We'll add it in the show notes.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Have a good one.
Subscribe, rate, and review for more episodes. Thanks for watching the Deadline Junkies Screenwriting Podcast.